Hello, citizens of the Craftiverse. Today I have a very special podcast. It's someone that I've been wanting to talk to for a couple of years now. His name is Anthony from Ace of Clay, and he's hands down one of my favorite sculptors, period. He has this twisted darkness to a lot of the subject matter that he chooses, which I find really appealing, and he just seems like a pretty cool guy. But you never know. Come on, let's go talk to Anthony and find out. Good afternoon, Anthony. How are you today, man?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. So every time I go to your channel and watch one of your videos, like as soon as I click on there, the song Ace of Spades by Motorhead comes into my head. And I don't know if, of course, with one obvious change to the lyrics, but is that just me or was that intentional?
I think it's just you, but I've gotten that several times before. I also get a lot of Ace of Base comments too, and it was totally unintentional.
Nice.
But I can't complain. I don't mind it at all.
Oh, yeah. Most times when I ask a question that ends with, is it just me? The answer is usually, yes, it's just me. So I'm glad you're consistent with that.
All right.
Craft Pod 13.
I mean, you've been sculpting, apparently, I would think you've been sculpting for a long time. Actually, when did you begin sculpting?
Well, if you really want to count when I really started sculpting, it was when I was 12 years old, and I was introduced to polymer clay in middle school by my art teacher, and from there, I just kind of did it as a hobby. I was customizing action figures with it. I just thought it was the coolest stuff ever because you could bake it just to harden it. You didn't have to wait 24 hours or anything for it to cure, and that's really my start with it. And then from there, of course, it was 7th grade, so I took a few breaks, but I just always did it as a hobby. And then I picked it up again in college and actually sculpted some figures for a senior thesis, graphic design thesis, and realized that I was, pretty good at it. So I just kind of turned it into a business from there.
Very cool. Yeah. So when you were in college, did you go to school, an art school, or for sculpting in particular, or just graphic design?
I went to an art school for just graphic design. I have no formal sculpting training at all.
Oh, I see. Cool. So you just have a knack for it. And are you an illustrator?
Yeah, I used to be. I used to love drawing. I that's kind of what I did, mostly before I, started sculpting. I was always drawing.
Yeah, that makes sense, just to have a really good grasp of the figure and just poses and all of that. Yeah. Right. I know it's really hard to I don't think about this very much, but when you stop and think about it, the impact that polymer clay and Sculpey has really had on accessibility for people to jump into the medium of Sculpey is really hard to even comprehend, because it's huge.
Mm-hmm. It really is, yeah. And then every day there's more people out there that you didn't realize were there before.
Yeah, no doubt. Sculpting, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, or people that want to, that have never sculpted a day in their life and then realize that they're really good at it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the whole reason I got into it was basically it's something that really calms me down and just gives me something to focus on. Is that something that you find when sculpting?
I've never really looked at sculpting as relaxing because I'm a very ADHD person. I'm very high energy. It's hard for me to calm down sometimes, and when I'm sculpting, I'm looking at the end goal all the time and what my sculpture is going to look like, and I'm excited about the process. So I'm just trying to just sculpt and get to my goal, and I've always kind of been like that. I love it so much and I enjoy it so much that that's all I need. I don't really find it calming. I find it fun and exciting.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, you're doing it seems like a video every week, right? Mm-hmm. So it's one sculpture a week.
Yep.
For at least 4 years. I think your channel's been around 6 years, but it looks like you've been doing it pretty hardcore consistently for maybe 4.
Right. Yeah. I started my channel, I made the account in 2015, but I didn't start my YouTube career until 2018, late 2018.
Gotcha. Are you running out of room yet in your house with all
Yeah, I
these
am.
sculptures?
Very much so.
I mean, you must have, I can see a few of them on the shelves behind you in your videos, but like, I mean, how many do you have? Do you even know?
It's roughly 50 to 54 sculptures a year, so I have at least 150
Wow.
hanging around here. And the ones on the shelf behind me, that's only a year. Not even all of them from 1 year.
Wow. Wow. Do you have a whole room like just dedicated to your sculptures?
Yeah, the room that I sculpt in, yeah, they're just all over the place, no rhyme or reason.
So you're sculpting all the time. You go to college for graphic design, and then you sort of started your YouTube channel, and you got kind of off to, I mean, not a slow start, but you just kind of, it seems like you started maybe your YouTube channel and didn't realize like until later, like, oh man, this could be something. I could really, do like a business with this. 'Cause like it looks like at first you were kind of just sort of, you mentioned before you were customizing action figures, and when you first started your channel, you're sort of customizing like thrift store items, like little porcelain figurines and stuff. How do you feel like you've evolved and your channels like evolved like over the years? What was that journey kind of like?
Stressful for one, but fun and challenging. Those are some words that I could use to describe it. When I first started, I wanted to be not saying that I'm not an art teacher now, but like my goal was to just be a tutorial channel and teach people how to do things, not really focus so much on the entertainment aspect of sculpting, more about, the fundamentals and like getting people into the craft, that kind of thing. And then with the exception of, the thrift store transformations that were kind of like a gimmicky hook to get people to my channel, which actually worked. Sure. And I'm not saying, they were bad sculptures or anything, or like I clickbaited anyone, but those were kind of the most off the wall things that I was doing at the time. And then just from there, it's just sort of evolved into this thing where, I'm challenging myself every week to make a sculpture. People are counting on me to make one, and I'm doing it, and I'm venturing into like some fan art. I'm actually in the process of creating like my own little world with, different creatures and characters that I'm putting out there, and then just, keeping up on the trends and just really, focusing on my audience and what my audience wants, and always keeping that at the center of what I do. Where at first, when I started, I was just kind of all over the place, just like making things to, get stuff out there. Cause I had so much energy built up from wanting to do the YouTube channel for so long that I was just like exploding with different ideas and things. And now it's more like strategic, like what do people want to see? What do they want to watch? That kind of thing. So it's more of like a business rather than like this fun little hobby that is what it was when I started.
Right. You've kind of pinpointed, or you're actively looking to pinpoint what's working and what's not in your channel and making adjustments, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just on that whole like clickbait thing, there's a world of difference between making something like that someone wants to click on and clickbait. So, and I certainly feel that, your stuff is in that former category where it's like it's stuff people want to click on. Clickbait is just basically things that they don't even deliver, and your videos deliver every time. You always have this wonderful sculpture that ends up at the end. How long has it been, or has it ever happened to where you like want to do a sculpture and it really doesn't turn out the way you want? And have you ever had like a video where you're like, no, not doing it, not putting this out?
I've actually put out every video that I've ever made. I've never, made something and then not liked it and then not released the video, which is a good and a bad thing. A good thing is, because I'm staying consistent with things. A bad thing because I put out stuff that like I didn't necessarily like, but other people liked. So that's another thing too. There's always that fine line between like what I want to make and what keeps me happy, and then what other people are going to want to watch. So it's like I have to keep my audience happy, and if that means sculpting some things that I don't necessarily want to sometimes, that's totally fine with me.
Yeah, I think I had seen something where you had mentioned at one point you were like, I wasn't totally happy with this, but you know, here it is, and I'm looking at the end product, and I'm just like, man, I wish I could sculpt as well as this, and this is stuff he doesn't like. So kudos to you, man. That's amazing. So let's see. So you thought about being an art teacher for a while, correct?
Yeah.
And now you are. I mean, really.
Yeah, essentially I am, yeah, with a really big art class.
Totally, it's huge. And you mentioned something earlier, and you have you have this series of like original characters that I just love, and you call it like, I think, Mutant Universe. What inspired you to do that?
Well, actually, this started around this time last year, almost a year to the day, actually, where Little Nightmares 2 just came out, and I really love that video game. I think it's amazing. I love the art direction in it. I love the style, and I sculpted one of the characters from the game, and then I kind of thought, like, hey, you know, this is really cool. What if I made my own character that looks like it could be in the game too? And that's when I made my first quote-unquote mutant character, and he was inspired by the style of Little Nightmares, and then that just sort of evolved into my own thing, because it's like I wasn't trying, it got to a point where I wasn't trying to make my stuff look like it was from Little Nightmares anymore. I was just doing it how I wanted to, and I was just making it my style, and it just so happens that it's really similar to that, you know, going down, you know, the next few characters that I've released. But that's kind of where it started, that inspired it, and then now it's just kind of its completely separate thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important thing, like, as someone who's doing artistic work, is that you have to find the things that you really love, kind of ingest them in, and when you first start kind of putting that back out there, it's much closer to what you were inspired by. But I think anyone who's following like their true like goal inside of themselves, their true intention, you really start to see it separate, and it starts to really become your own thing. So it's cool that you found that, like with your original characters.
And it's not necessarily the easiest process either, but it just kind of they create themselves after a while, you know, like this world that I've made is informing me on what it needs next. You know, you get to that point where it's just kind of, you're on autopilot, and it just comes to you. You know, it's not so much work anymore as it is just, you know, bringing these ideas and characters to fruition naturally as it flows with the story that you're writing.
Yeah, Stephen King has this amazing book called, I think it's called On Writing. And even if you're not a writer or interested in writing, it's an amazing book to listen to, because the creative processes that he talks about is just fascinating. And when he begins writing a book, he doesn't know where it's going. He doesn't know how it's going to turn out. So, and he's saying a thing very similar to what you're saying, which is basically that he's being... It's being told to him. He's being informed. And yeah, that's pretty fascinating all around, just the whole creative process.
Yeah, it really is. It's really weird to experience firsthand.
Yeah, no doubt, just to see something coming out. So this first character in the Mutant Universe, this was the Ice Cream Man?
Yeah.
One of your, maybe it's your most recent video, at least at the time that we're recording this, but you've kind of redone the Ice Cream Man, and you've done them in a much larger scale. And I noticed that you're using epoxy sculpt to do that particular sculpture, as opposed to you usually kind of stick to Sculpey, it seems. So did you use epoxy sculpt for like strength, and then do you also find that it's like maybe trickier to sculpt an epoxy sculpt?
Yeah, it's definitely trickier. It's actually a lot more. It's a completely different experience than polymer clay. Like, polymer clay is like my home, my happy place. Like, I can sculpt it with my eyes closed. You know what I mean? So then switching over to something like epoxy sculpt, and the reason why I used epoxy was because of the wouldn't have been able to fit him in the oven, and you know, it's self-hardening and all that, but it's a completely different experience. It's much harder to work with, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty enjoyable. It kind of reminds me of ceramic clay, like when you're making pottery and stuff in high school. and whatever. It has a very similar consistency to that, and then you can use water to smooth it, which is pretty enjoyable. It works pretty well. I think the next time I make a sculpture with an epoxy clay or a, self-hardening clay, I'll probably try Magic Sculpt. I've heard that was a little easier to work with than epoxy.
To be honest, man, I have tried both of them like a lot, and I see no difference between Magic Sculpt and epoxy sculpt. I really don't feel any difference. But there is one, and try it for yourself. I mean, you have way more experience with sculpting than I do. One cool trick that I did see someone do, and I've started to use, is basically when they're using any kind of like epoxy clay, they pre-make a bunch of little balls, right, that are all the same size, just waiting there for them in small increments, so they can just, you don't, like when you get to the end of the little piece that you're using, you don't have to like stop, get everything out of the containers, mix them up again. You just have, a couple of balls there, you grab it, mix them up, and you continue going.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so so just being prepared then with the everything all portioned out, and then just having it at your fingertips as you need it, you're saying?
Yeah, it's all the A and B compounds are portioned out, together, and you do several little balls, but you don't mix them. And then as soon as you're ready to move on, or you've worked through the little piece that you have, you just grab those and they're just sitting there. So it kind of keeps your creative flow going.
Gotcha. I like that. Maybe I'll do that next time. I like that.
Yeah. It's a cool one. So you mentioned video games earlier, and is that something you do to kind of decompress?
Not as much as I'd like to now, but definitely when I was younger, and maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I was really into video games. Now I'm just so busy, I don't have time to sit down and play something. And then when I do, I get like really fixated on the game, and that's all I think about. And I just want to like finish what I'm doing and go play video games. So I need to like keep myself in check.
That's exactly the way I am too.
Yeah.
I've had to cut video games out of my life. It just it takes up too much time, and then I get completely fixated on them. I guess that fixation is what makes you an amazing sculptor, is that ability to just, if you don't have that video games in your life, and your sculpture is that thing that captures your imagination, and you want to get through everything else. I find myself like eating quickly sometimes, instead of enjoying a meal, and I'm like, you need to balance out a little here, but you feel the same way a little bit.
100%, yeah, and I just attribute it to the ADHD too.
Hey, if you haven't been over to Ace of Clay's YouTube channel to watch him make these amazing sculptures, what are you waiting for? I mean, finish listening to this podcast first, but what are you waiting for? Seriously though, go check him out. His sculptures are absolutely astonishing, and it's just fun. After you got your channel started and you were going for a few years, was there like at some point where you got up one morning and you had like, you noticed like your views were going up, or you had some big breakthrough video that just was like a game changer for you?
Yeah, one of the first videos that I uploaded actually did that. That was, I remember the first video that I count for my channel is when I sculpted Spyro back in December 2018. And then one of the next videos after that, I don't know if it was the next video or a couple later, but I did the anglerfish, duck to anglerfish thrift store transformation, and that's the one that blew up. I remember I woke up one day and went from 320 views to 20,000 views, and I was just like, holy crap, this is actually going to work. And then from there I did the giraffe to dragon, and the rest is history. And then the anglerfish was actually got some like media attention. I got on the show like right this minute. It's this like viral TV show thing. It's in the Chives archives, and I got some articles written about it, and it's just really crazy how that one just blew up. And for it to blow up so soon in my YouTube career like that doesn't happen for people,
right?
So that was just kind of like my sign, like, hey, you're doing the right thing.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing, man. The what is the Chives archives?
Oh, it's just it's a TV channel that they play at like bars and restaurants that have like that just loops like viral videos.
Oh, cool.
It's called The Chive. Yeah, so he's in there with a couple of my other process videos. But and then right this minute is a similar thing. It's just a TV show that's on during the day.
That's a super sweet way to get started, man.
Right? You're telling me. Talk about luck.
It's not luck at all, man. It's your sculptures are phenomenal. So let's see, and you just you have a great way of presenting things and showing things, and everything's looking good. And it also seems like you're paying more attention now to like trying to make your videos look as good as they can. At least that's what I'm interpreting just from watching it, because it seems like recently like you sort of upgraded some of your filming equipment. It looks like maybe you got a motorized slider for your camera. Like what was your reason behind these upgrades?
Well, okay, at the end of the day, I'm a sculptor, not a videographer. So I try my best with the filming stuff, and it's hard to do both because like, okay, I'm in the middle of sculpting a face, and then I gotta stop and I gotta change the zoom on the lens, or like I gotta move the slider somewhere, you know what I mean? Like I gotta focus on both parts. So sometimes, it can be lacking and I'll focus more on the sculpting. But my reason for that is just because I've grown to the size that I am right now without doing too many crazy upgrades, and I think now is just the time to start making things look better. Let's do the LED light thing, let's get a couple more camera gadgets, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's looking cool. I love the slider thing, and it's one thing that it never occurred to me before I started YouTube, but the hardest part of creating stuff on YouTube is crafting or sculpting and doing the camera work, filming it. It's much harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, definitely. Me too, because honestly, if I never had to film another sculpture again, I don't think I would. The only reason I do it is for YouTube, because it's like you got to be at the right angle, and then sometimes like you'll make something and you'll get so zoned into your sculpture that you'll forget to check the viewfinder, or and you're completely out of frame. And it can be a pain sometimes, but I think I've gotten it down to the point where like I don't really run into that problem too much. But at the same time, it's not my favorite part of doing this. If I could hire a whole camera crew, that'd be amazing.
Totally. It does add a whole level of stress to it that was never there before. Another thing I find is like when I first started sculpting, what I would do is a lot of times I would pick up, now I was working on smaller things than I maybe do now, but I would sort of pick things up and hold it close to my face, or even sit back and kind of have it almost on my chest and be working on it. And then when you're filming, that's really not possible.
Yeah, you got to learn how to sculpt far away. Because I was the same way, man. Everything, like my nose was touching my sculptures when I made them before, and now it's like I got to sculpt them like off to the side at this weird awkward angle. And I've done it so much now, it kind of feels natural, but like that's a hard adjustment.
It really is difficult to get used to. I mean, I still find myself like filming one certain part of the sculpture and I'm like struggling with it, and I get that little clip captured, and because I've been learning to try to like film a little bit at the beginning, a little bit in the middle, and a little bit at the end of whatever process I'm doing, not the whole sculpture but that particular part. So after I capture the first part, I tend to turn the camera off and get things a little bit closer to me. I don't know if you do that at all, or you're just used to working further away.
I think now I'm just used to working further away. If I like for certain things, like if I have to make like two hands or two legs or something like that, I'll film the first leg, and then the second one I'll turn the camera off and I'll just sculpt it right in front of me, and it just feels so good to be in that
you're like,
position. I'm like, oh, what a weight off my shoulders right now.
Exactly. I love it. So speaking of, because like I come from the opposite side of it. I love, like I always did like crafts, but I became more of a filmmaker. And then now I'm like kind of mixing the two back together. But do you like the process of editing, or is that something else that's just a bit like, boy, I wish I didn't have to do this?
I don't mind it, because by the time I'm editing, my sculpture's done, my anxiety is gone, because I've finished the sculpture, it looks good, and I'm happy with it, and now I can just sit and relax in my little room, grab some coffee, and just edit until the thing's done.
Nice.
So I don't mind it. That's kind of like my wind down time from a crazy week of stressing out to get this sculpture done. You know, now I know I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's edit.
What does a week feel like to you? So like do you take a day off in between these projects at all?
I do usually. I like having my weekends, you know, keep my sanity, Saturday, Sunday, and then Friday night when the video's out, I'm on cloud nine. But yeah, Saturday, Sunday, take those days off. Sometimes I'll take Monday. It just depending on what I'm sculpting and how long it's going to take.
Right.
That'll determine whether or not I work Monday. But for the most part, it's usually just like Tuesday, Wednesday, sculpting, painting. Thursday, finish up anything little that I need to, and then I'll film the intros. I'll edit, and then I'll do the voiceovers either Thursday night or Friday morning before I upload.
So you're able to knock some of this out in 2.5 days. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's one thing I've got going for me is that I can work really fast.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, man. And I guess that has probably sped up as you've been doing YouTube and just been forced to do. Yeah. I hope that happens for me, that it speeds up a little.
Oh, it will, trust
nice.
me. It will,
That
promise.
would be nice. So back to the Mutant Universe, because I'm fascinated with this. You also, when you do these original characters, you create little stories for them, and then you sort of piecemeal that through the video. How did that come about? And do you like sit and write these, or they come to you while you're sculpting, or?
Well, the thing is, it can be, the process can be one of two different ways, one of two different things. It can either be I come up with the story before I make the sculpture, or I come up with the story after I make the sculpture. And if I have the story before I make the sculpture, that's the way I like to do it, because it makes everything go really smooth and, it all makes sense and it's like cohesive. Making the story after the sculpture's done is a little more difficult, and that's usually with pieces that I can't really figure out even when they're done, and I have to sit and think about, okay, what's this character about now? I know what they look like. I know, some big points, but I need like the little details still.
And so like also too, like I'm kind of circling around the ice cream man, because I want to ask you about like this merch that I saw. But first, before I forget, I also saw that you have this really cool like t-shirt, and it's got a lot of characters drawn on it, your own characters. And I heard you mention earlier that you're an illustrator. Did you illustrate that graphic?
No, I didn't. I actually commissioned that from a very talented illustrator. His name's Josh Setzer. He does all of the merch that I've released lately. So that's commissioned.
Oh, fantastic. I'll put his link in the description of this video. So to the ice cream man, in that video, the latest video that I saw, you have like a plush toy that you've just released, which looks super cool, man. And I'm personally fascinated with the whole interfacing between like a creator and a manufacturer to get something made. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of that?
It was actually, I worked with Makeship, which works with creators every day. So they got this whole process down to a science, and it was so smooth and so fun. Really, it really was fun, this process, because they just sort of directed me through each of the steps. They let me have pretty much everything I wanted. I showed them, a sketch that I drew of how I wanted this plush to look, and they just turned it into the plush. And, 2-3 revisions later, he's good to go. That was really it. I didn't really work with a manufacturer just like solo. I worked with this company that knew what they were doing with working with creators. You know what I mean? I wasn't just going blindly into something. They were able to guide me. So it was definitely a really enjoyable process because of that. Because I can't imagine going like straight to a factory or something with an idea and then having to deal with like all these different middlemen and whatever, So it was a lot easier to just go through Makeship like this. And I'm very happy with it.
Nice. Makeshift, right? And they just act as that middleman between you and a manufacturer.
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And I'm sure they do a whole host of products, and hopefully, do they make action figures? Can you get action figures made?
I don't think so. Action figures, I think they can do like little charms and stuff. But if you go to their website, makeship.com, it's got a bunch of different campaigns and everything's a pre-order. You got to sell like 200 of each plush before it can go into production. And then if you hit that, the 200 mark, then you win. You're going to get your plush made. And then if you don't, then it doesn't go into production. But, fingers crossed I hit 200 soon.
Oh, I'm sure you will. So yeah, it's sort of like it's almost like a pseudo Kickstarter kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. I would definitely look these people up, and then hopefully at some point use them. Now I've started to fall in love with cosplay. And mostly the reason is because of strength. The flexibility just gives it like so much more strength than Sculpey, in my opinion. And I'm thinking about like in the future completely switching over possibly to just cosplay for the entire sculptures. Have you ever sculpted an entire sculpture in cosplay only?
Yeah, I have. My Dracula from October 2018, he is 100% cosplay.
How was that experience?
It was nice. It was very, very familiar, very similar to Sculpey. I enjoyed it. It's got a little bit of a different consistency. I think it's a little tackier than Sculpey, but I liked it. It was fine.
Cool. Yeah. Do you ever find like your Sculpey, you end up breaking like little parts of your sculptures while you're working?
If I'm not smart about it and I know that it's going to break while I'm making the part, that's usually when it happens. But if you make your armature properly and you're being realistic with what you're putting on and the thickness of things, it's really not a problem. But like if I'm rushing or something and I just throw like a little hanging dangly piece of fabric or something on, like I know it's going to crack, so it's just my fault.
Yeah, I think I've seen you mix cosplay and Sculpey together, right?
All the time, actually.
What's the reasoning behind that?
I just like I like my sculptures to be solid, hard figurines, and then I like using cosplay as more of like an accessory product where I can make the little delicate pieces out of that and then just stick it to my Sculpey. So my sculpture's still hard and I don't have to worry about any of the little pieces breaking on it.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how I look at it. I mean, would I make full sculptures out of just cosplay going forward? 100%. But, this is just how I like to work for the time being.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that makes total sense. I'm gonna give that a try. Just you mix it together like in your pasta machine or just by hand?
Oh, I don't physically mix the two clays together. I actually just attach them to each other. Like I'll make, for example, if I have a Superman sculpture. Okay, I make Superman out of Sculpey, and then I'll make his cape out of cosplay and just stick the cape on. I don't mix the two clays together. Yeah.
I got you. My bad. So after watching your channel for like I don't know, I think it's been like 3 years or something. I've been watching.
Oh, thanks,
your channel.
man.
Although with some of the questions that I asked, you would think that I hadn't learned anything. But it seems like are you a horror movie fan?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, what's some of your favorites?
Oh God, I love all the Halloween movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love the first couple Saws that came out. They kind of got crazy with the more recent ones, but I love thrillers. I love all the classic ones, like like the Omen. It's hard to find one that I don't like, unless it's like a really cheesy one that low budget or whatever. But right. Scream's awesome. I love them all.
Oh yeah, and it's all the good classics you're talking about. Actually, it was The Exorcist was the scariest movie I had ever seen in my life. I still don't really want to see it.
I know. I'm kind of in the same boat with you there.
Yeah, I mean, I was raised Catholic, so it really it frightened me when I was younger. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they were even showing me that at my age. Yeah. Apparently my parents were like, whatever, as long as you don't bother us. Oh, hello. I didn't see you standing there. I was wondering if later, maybe after you finish this podcast, if you'd like to come back to my channel, CRAFTASTROPHE, maybe check out some fun, weird, odd, and hopefully funny videos. What do you think about that?
Plus, you'll have the pleasure of meeting me. I'm Tinu's daddy.
Okay, well, that's a freaking buzzkill.
Well, excuse me for living.
Let's just get back to the podcast. Here's a silly question, and it's just for my own entertainment. Like, I see you wearing headphones sometimes when you're sculpting. Like, what do you listen to when you're sculpting?
I listen to podcasts. I listen to not so much podcasts anymore. I don't even think I could name a podcast that I'm listening to right now. But I listen to like audiobooks, music, whatever I'm in the mood for. Most of the time, though, I actually just like dead silence so that I can focus, because sometimes I'll just get so like the song is like playing in my ear, and then it's like stressing me out, and like the beat or whatever is making me go faster or slower. So most of the time I don't listen to anything, but yeah, just basic stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you that the music can be so influential. To be honest, if I'm trying to concentrate on something, it's funny, as long as music doesn't have lyrics, I can do it usually, but I do like silence for 90% of what I'm doing. And then I do love audiobooks. Like, it's just, there's just something about being able to lose yourself in a story and do something. But yeah, as soon as it comes time to think about something, though, while I'm doing it, I can't do both at the same time. That's for sure.
Yep, right there with you.
So you probably answered this already as we were talking, but my guess would be art teacher. But if you weren't doing YouTube full time, is that what you think you would be doing?
I actually I never got any formal training in being art education or anything like that. So I would probably still be a graphic designer, and I'd probably still have my Etsy shop where I sold different sculptures and stuff like that, and doing like custom orders for people.
So at what point did you decide I want to create a YouTube channel and this is what I'm going to do?
Well, this goes all the way back to 2016, when I had my Etsy shop and stuff like that, and I started to post process videos on my Instagram account, and it was kind of just like a joke where I would say people would rather watch me work than the pictures of my finished sculptures. Like, what am I, an entertainment profile? And I was just kind of like, hey, maybe I'm onto something here. So just from there, I just turned to YouTube as a different outlet for these process videos, essentially. And I kind of before I started my channel and doing it seriously, I actually took an entire year where I just researched YouTube. I was watching a ton of different creators. I was seeing how they filmed and what people like to watch and stuff like that. I was just experiencing YouTube as the user for a full year. And then after that, I started my channel and kind of applied everything that I learned, and I guess you could say it worked.
Oh, I would say that, yes. It's yeah, man, you've got a fantastic following going. And I know when I look at you, I think of you as one of the best sculptors on YouTube, and there's a couple other people that come to my mind that are pretty amazing. Is there someone on YouTube that you look up to that you think is just wow, this is an amazing sculptor?
Definitely. Her channel is called Clay Attraction. I believe she's Korean, and her sculptures are just mind-blowing. She does a lot of Disney, Pixar stuff, and it literally looks like her thumbnails look like screenshots from the movies. She's so talented.
Wow. And what medium is she using?
I think polymer clay, or some type of clay that's very similar to polymer. She does a lot of colored clay too.
Yeah, that's one thing that I don't do much of. Do you use colored clay at all?
The only time I'll use colored clay is if I'm coloring an area of my sculpture that I'm not going to be able to fit my paintbrush. So I'm not really a fan of it. I don't like the process of using it, but I mean, there's some people out there that do some really amazing things with it. Clay Attraction included.
Yeah, by the way, man, you're, not to just talk about sculpting, but your painting is equally high level. And did you do was that part of that year of research into YouTube, or was that something that you just were doing alongside sculpting?
That was just something, yeah, I've just been doing it since I started, always painting my sculptures.
How do you feel about that part of the process?
I really enjoy it because I think it's the part that brings the sculpture to life, and the paint job can make or break a sculpture. Like, you can have a beautiful sculpture with a crappy paint job that just ruins the whole thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's so important, and it's relaxing for me. Like, if you want to talk about the, does sculpting relax me thing again, the painting part is relaxing because the sculpture is done. The hard part is done. Now I just need to color it all in.
I find it funny that you're so good at sculpting and you've never really fallen on your face as far as like trying to get one out there for a video, yet you still stress yourself out about it. Oh, yeah, that's interesting, man. I can completely relate, just because it's funny how like you can be so good at one thing, and for some reason, as humans, we still put this pressure on ourselves.
Every week never fails.
Hilarious. And besides like the painting and sculpting, like, are there other elements of like artwork or crafting that you're interested in doing or that you do?
I think I don't really do anything like that right now, but I love the multimedia stuff that I've done a couple times, like working with different fabric and like hair and stuff like that. That's probably the extent of my exploration, I guess you could say. I'd like to do, some more stuff with like resin. I'd like to do some little dioramas, that kind of thing, but always keep sculpting at the core of everything.
Gotcha. Yeah. The diorama stuff is it's an interesting one. It's tricky. I mean, I've touched upon it just a little bit, and there's some amazing creators. And if you haven't seen this guy, you mentioned the Saw movies earlier, and he just recently did one where he rebuilt that room from the first Saw. Have you seen abandoned miniatures stuff, Nick?
I don't think I have. No, I know a couple miniature accounts, but I don't think I've seen him.
Oh, go check him out, because he does this amazing thing where he builds these beautiful dioramas, but then he films them as if they were real rooms, and he's using this like macro lens. Anyway, check out his stuff. It's worth it.
Yeah, will do. That's awesome. That sounds amazing.
So, dude, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me. It's been wonderful, and like I said, I've been watching your channel for in YouTube terms for a long time, 3 years. It's funny how YouTube operates at a different time scale, right? You're talking 2016 and we're like, that's ancient history.
Right. Seriously. Yeah. Everything goes so fast.
I know. It's just in a faster timetable than anything else in the world, it seems. Mm-hmm. So is there anything you'd like to tell people about, like the work you're doing or some upcoming projects or anything else you want to end on?
Really, my focus is going to be, a little bit more on the Mutant Universe, expanding that. I'd like to get into some, short story writing sooner or later with that, and just keep rolling with it, keep giving people, what they want to see from me, maybe start a couple new different challenges and series, and, just rolling with it and having fun.
It might be great to see an animated series based off of the Mutant Universe.
That would be really cool, yeah.
Killer, man. Well, look, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And anyone out there, go check out Ace of Clay if you don't know who he is, because he's amazing.
Thanks a lot, man. Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Craft Pod 13.